Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this warm winter morning, winter afternoon, uh, for this lovely session by Mr. Thomas Koshi. May I request Mr. Vasant to introduce our speaker and let the webinar start?
Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce you a brief introduction of our experienced speaker, Mr. Thomas Koshi. With a 26 years of sailing experience as a tanker professional, uh, 12 years in tankers and 13 years in bulk cargo, with experience handling of all sailing experience on all kinds of ships, the qualified trainer by DG Shipping of India. He professionally qualified as the first mate mariner also. He joined Masters Group as a business development manager and handles IMDG vanning surveys for all location all over Gujarat operations of the Master Marine Group. He's been expert in consultation and carrying out IMDG cargo surveys for container vessels, effectively managing all dangerous goods surveys across all locations in India. He's also been a consultant for dangerous goods and related shipments. He's been effectively carrying out break bulk surveys for third parties, and also he's been leading a team to carrying out lashing and choking of various types of cargoes. With such a vast profile, handling a large crew of surveyors and guide them during their surveys, I now hand over to Thomas to take us ahead with his presentation and his knowledge, sharing his knowledge on the surveys, what are involved in our industry. Thomas, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasant. Am I audible and visible to you guys?
Yes, very much.
Yes, you are audible and visible. Before you just start, I'd like to request all the participants, please place any question and answer only in the question answer box. Do not do it in the chat. Chat is only for if you're not able to hear or something, you want to communicate, but question and answers, it'll be easy for us if you do it on the Q&A chat so we can compile and take it up at the end. Thank you. Over to Mr. Thomas.
Thanks, Priya. Thank you, Vasant, for such a beautiful intro. And I've been introduced so beautifully in my life. Thank you so much. Like you rightly said, I've been trained as a training professional. So pardon me if I suddenly go into the training mode and forget that it's a webinar and start teaching you guys. I'm very sorry for that if I do that. Let's move it. Let's directly jump into. I'll share my screen and just let me know, Vasant, if it's visible.
Yes, you're visible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so without any more ado, let's begin. So I don't want it to be a drab session. Let's begin with a small story. So you guys might be knowing Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is a multimillionaire and investor in US, and he is known for his taste in food and other vices. So on Friday night, Warren Buffett and his manager Charlie Munger, they decide to go out for a dinner to a Michelin star, 3-time Michelin star restaurant in New York. It's called Per Se. The chef is Thomas Feller, and they usually go down there and they have their favorite orders. So usually when they go there, it's already they know the maitre d' and everyone. They know what they're going to order and why are they coming. So they don't need to do a reservation. They don't need to do a booking. They just walk in and just sit at the regular table. So Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, as usual, as a Friday night, walks into Per Se, gets their table, sits on it, and they start conversing. But today it's a bit different. The maitre d' comes over, leans over to Mr. Buffett and says that, sir, I'm extremely sorry. your usual won't be available today. So his usual is T-bone steaks, if you know. T-bone steaks is a cut of meat, especially that's been flown in or shipped in from various places. So that won't be available tonight. That is what he says. So Buffett was like a little bit sad, and he asked what was the reason why it's not available. So the reason that the maitre d' given was that the container that it was supposed to come in, it was not refrigerated to the set degree of temperature that needs to be set for the meat to be fresh. My name is Thomas Koshi. Today I'll be transferring my knowledge about container service to you guys. Welcome. Container surveys usually they play a far bigger role in the industry than you might think. Basically, every survey. I'm just touching the container survey today because the subject being so vast, it's time bound and I cannot cover all the surveys that pertain in the marine industry. So we are touching upon container survey only today. So container surveys, there are multiple ways and there are multiple surveys that are carried out only in the container field. So this report or whatever the presentation that I am presenting to you, I will be touching upon certain surveys. There are cargo surveys, on-air, off-air surveys, cargo-worthy surveys, sea-worthy surveys, and then surveys which the International Institute of Container Leasers, that is the ISCL 6 standards surveys, which are very stringent. And also, I will be touching upon the various types of containers that deal in today's market. I will not be able to cover every type of container. I have selected the most used and most transported types of containers. So, especially like ISO tanks, obviously a container means a dry van box first. The dry van box, the tanks, ISO tanks, reefer containers, then flat track and open containers. So all these containers, they have a unique requirement for the kind of container they are in, and the kind of cargo they will carry. So we will briefly touch upon each of the type of containers and also the type of cargoes they carry. So when you think of a container, the first thing that comes to your mind is a rectangular colored box, something like this. Yeah. So this is the dry van type of container, which we use in our industry very often. Most of the types of containers that we use are these for most of the shipments. Then, if you can imagine liquid being pumped into a container, I don't know if you guys know, but it's possible. So for that, they have a different type of a container called as an ISO tank container. So these containers, they carry liquids from one place to the other. There's another set of containers called as open top or flat track. So what do these do? So now every cargo cannot be fitted into these two containers, the dry van or the ISO. There might be special project cargoes. Their shape could be odd, which cannot be fitted into a 20 feet or a 40 feet rectangular box. So what do we do there? So we have something called as the flat track. And also there are containers which is covered in 5 sides and the top is open, which is we call it as the open top container. These are usually used for bulk. I will touch upon the cargo that is that comes in all of these. And the last but not the least, but we have one more, that is the reefer containers. The reefer containers is the one which Warren Buffett had a problem with. Okay, so let me start with ISO tanks. So what are the cargoes that go into? Now I will be talking about the cargoes that go into these tanks. I will not be touching upon the survey part. Survey part will come in the slides that follow. So what are the kind of cargoes that go into ISO tanks. So ISO tanks are also known as tank containers. They contain specialized cargo and specialized containers designed for various types of liquids and gases to be shipped. So these tanks conform to the specifications of the International Standard Organization, ISO, and these are commonly used for shipping various types of liquids like chemicals, petroleums, and food grade gases. So in liquids, if you call it in chemicals we have like acids, sulfuric acid, call it hydrochloric acid, phosphoric acid, acetone. These are the ones that go into this as a chemical. Other than the remaining petroleum products, of course, you guys all know that like gasoline, petroleum products like petrol, kerosene, jet fuel, all these petroleum products. You also can ship food grade products. So food grade products means like juices, or some resin or something like that. Gases also can be transported in ISO tanks, like propane, butane. Obviously, the size and shape may vary according to the type of gas and the type of requirements, but these can be. And my favorite kind is also transported in this beverages like wine and spirits. So all kinds of wine, all kinds of spirits which are transported can also be transported in an ISO tank. Moving on to the next, I call it the open tank or the flat track. So why do we need a open top or a flat track? As I said earlier, project cargoes which do not fit into the container, into the rectangular shaped container, will have to go into a container which does not have any sides, because the sides are bulging out or sides are protruding out. So that is where the flat track container comes in. The project cargoes, which are huge, like a big boiler or a big machinery part, which cannot be fitted into a container, will often go in on a flat track. And in an open top, now we talked about liquid going in the tanks. If you were to talk about bulk solids, if you have to go into a container. So to put into a container and to remove it, it's much easier as the top is open. When the top is open, the loading and the discharging processes are very simple, because you usually have an arm by which it can be loaded directly from the top, because there is no top for the container. Once it is loaded, they can seal the top with a canvas or a sheet covering it, and then secure it on all sides with a a strain or a high tensile wire. The next one that we have is reefer containers. So reefer containers, as the name suggests, is reefer. So it's like basically a traveling fridge of yours. If you have a fridge and you know what goes into your freezer, you can guess what goes into your reefer container as well. So you can transport meat, as obvious, meat products, your fish, dairy, medicines. Why would medicines need? Because there are certain medicines which will need to be temperature controlled, like your anesthesia, like your recent 2 years back we had COVID. India used the maximum number of reefer containers to ship out COVID residuals to countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, South Africa. So there they use the reefer containers. Also, again, my favorite, wine, spirits, and alcoholic beverages, which need temperature control atmosphere to be transported. So these, and obviously the last one, the dry container. Whatever you can think of in front of you has probably been in a container and has reached you. Or whatever you can think of in your home that you have is probably being shipped in a container by road, by rail, or by sea. Obviously, for air, they use a different type of a container, but even though it's still a container. So these are basically the four kinds of containers, four or five types of containers, which is now used in this industry as of now. In future, we might see many more that comes along in different shapes, different sizes. But as of now, these are the 4 to 5 types of containers that we see in the market right now. Moving ahead, so now once we spoke about the containers, we spoke about what all cargo goes into the container. We spoke about what kind of cargo goes into what kind of container. So let's now delve into what kind of surveys are required now. So now every container or every different type of a cargo will require a survey. Depending on who is asking for the survey, why the survey is being carried out, what is the necessity for a survey, that will come to later on. Let's try and understand the types of survey that is prevalent in the industry today. So first that we use in the container that goes, obviously a container that is loaded will have cargo in it. Okay, why the cargo needs to be surveyed? Because now cargo surveys are conducted to assess the condition and the compatibility of the cargo with the container that is going in. Now, as I told you earlier, there is a specific type of container for every specific kind of cargo. You cannot put A into a container which is meant to carry X. You cannot put Y in a container that's meant to carry Z. Similarly, so why we need a cargo survey is to assess the condition and the compatibility of the cargo with the container. We need to ascertain that the right cargo is going in the right container. Now, what happens is basically when a shipper takes a container or it's got a cargo to be shipped, he usually has a surveyor that is disposition to check whether the container that is chosen is right for his product. The surveyor will guide him. He will tell him that, so this survey for this cargo, this is this container that is required. Okay. So cargo surveys helps ensure that the goods are properly packed, secured, and suitable for the transport. Some of the cargo surveys for specific type of cargos, there are high-end electronics that go into a container. So just imagine if your container is damaged or it's got a hole, and your Apple MacBook Air is coming in that container, and there's a hole, and during sea transit there is water ingress. The ramifications thereon. What happens to the product? So what all do you check when you see that this cargo has to go into this container? So for a high-end cargo, probably the temperature and humidity control checks, verification of the labeling and the documentation that is required, inspection of the packaging. So the cargo has to be packaged in such a way that during transit, the valuable good inside the packaging is not harmed in any way. Ventilation and airflow, all these kinds of things. So another kind of survey that we have is on and off hire service. What do you mean by on and off hire service? So containers when are being taken by the shipper. So he is taking a container on hire. He is taking the container so that he can fill in his goods and he can send it out. And once the goods reach the destination, the consignee has received the goods. They are confirmed that the consignee has got the goods in place. And then he says that, okay, now my job for this container is done. I want to give this container back. So when he takes on the container, he carries out a survey called as an on-hire survey. On-hire surveys for containers are conducted when containers are leased or hired by the shipping companies or cargo owners. So the leaser can be a shipping company or the cargo owners. The surveys are essential to the documentation of the condition of the container. So first they will check the documentation of the container, whether this container has got a valid CSC plate, ASF certificate, all that. So they will go into the documentation later on how many months is the lease period going to be. Then they will go and determine the condition of the container. So when the condition of the container is being assessed, the surveyor comes in, he checks the container and makes a report that at the time of receiving this container, so and so was noted, or so and so was okay. So when he passes on this information to his boss, who is the leaser will provide this certificate to the company who is giving him the container. Tell them, sir, this is the survey report. Please sign on this and let's move ahead with the lease. So when both the parties agree, okay, what you have found is correct, we sign the document and then the lease begins. And then they take on the container and the container is shipped with the cargo and the container reaches the next port of the port of discharge. So once the port of discharge is reached now we do not know what happened during the transit. If you guys have been at sea or have seen ships handling bad weather or heavy weather, you know that it's not easy. The containers go through a lot during the sea transit. We call it the perils of the sea. So when the container travels from one destination to the other, the perils of the sea comes into force on the container or on the goods that are in the container. So we may also have a calm sea throughout the voyage and no perils of the sea encountered and a smooth ride. But that often not being the case, the container goes through a rough sea or a heavy sea or, has some damages, gets a complete voyage which filled with rolling and pitching. So you can understand what happens to the cargo inside with the motion of the sea, with the waves, with the motion of the ship. The cargo inside the container, if it is not lashed or if it is loose or whatever, if the containers are loose or it's not properly stacked or properly lashed, it goes through a perilous movement through the voyage. So these things affect the condition of the container when it reaches the discharge port. So now once we have reached the discharge port, so it's probably seen that the condition of the container as was received at the load port might not be the same while the cargo is being discharged at the discharge port. So you have a brand new car at your doorstep, but you go for a cross country drive with your friend and come back after 1 month with your car. You can imagine the condition of the car before the journey began and after the car has completed the cross country drive and come back to your house. So similar lines, the container also will have wear and tear. So that is when the container is loaded off its cargo. The cargo is empty. And now the leaser feels that I do not need this container anymore. I had to give it back to the leasee, the guy who gave me the container. So now again, the owner of the container or the guy who has leased out the container tells the shipper, okay, you did a survey while taking on, let's do a survey while giving it back. So that survey is called off-hire service. So when there is an off-hire survey or an on-hire survey, there are many things that are checked. I will read out to you some of the things that are checked during an on or an off-hire survey. Okay. So first is so an empty container is presented. The first they enter the container, they see the floor of the container. So any signs of damage by water. This is done at both the ends. Mind you, it's always done at the time of getting the survey, getting the container and also while giving the container back. So both these scenarios, the same things will be checked at both the ends. The floor of the container, if there is any damage due to wear and tear or damage due to any goods which have been shipped inside the container, any issues that need to be addressed before the container is put to service or after giving the containers back into service. Okay, then we also inspect the seals and gaskets. Seals and gaskets of the container are usually at the doors, which makes the container watertight. So if your container is not water and weather tight, if water can ingress into your container, that means water can damage the container first of all, and the high-end value goods that the container is holding. So to ensure that doesn't happen while taking on the container, we do a survey and you can find out whether my shipment is safe in this container. So that is what they do when doing the on-air survey. They close the container, check for any signs of in complete darkness. They check for any signs of pinholes or air coming in, or see signs of light anywhere, and that's how they determine whether the sealing is perfect. Then they also obviously they check the cosmetic condition. You cannot have a battered down container. You should have at least a cosmetic value that the container looks good. Also, any repairs that have been carried out or has been carried out, and how is the condition of the repair? If there's a repair, is there a welding? Is there a floor damage and it is the repaired? Is it done nicely? Will it take on the perils of the sea? Is the welding good enough? Is it standard welding? Does it have a certificate, or is the welding approved? There will be no leakages from the welding. Also, you always check the mechanism of the locks and the doors and the hinges, everything. Ensure that the container is well cleaned, well maintained while giving or taking on the container. So these are basically what you check during an on and an off hire survey. I hope I covered all the points for an on and off hire survey. So now during this on and off hire survey also, there are stringent laws when it comes to surveying the container. So one of them is the IICL 6 survey, what do you call the Indian Institute of Container Leases. This survey, which is carried out, is for all types of transportation, whether it's going by road, sea, or rail. So what they do is they check whether this container is cargo worthy. I mean, is this container fit enough to carry my cargo? What the shipper did during the on-hire survey, there is a specialized surveyor who is IICL certified to carry out the survey. This is a more stringent survey than your basic on-hire survey. So this surveyor takes in great pains to see each and everything that I mentioned last point during the off-hire survey. So they ensure that this container that you have taken is ISCL 6 worthy, it is worthy of carrying your cargo. So how do they begin with? First, as usual, the structural inspection of the container. So the structure of the container, they verify that it is structurally sound, the frames, the corner castings, and overall the container's integrity is maintained. The condition of the floor. So as I said in the earlier point, every point that is being checked there, they do a thorough check with the prerequisite condition that has been given by ICL 6. They check that the floor is not damaged. If there is even a slight damage on an on-air off-air survey, they might let it go. But for an ICL 6 survey, if there's even a peeling of the first layer of your floor, they might want to have it renewed. Okay. They also will ensure that the flooring does not have any damage, corrosion, or weakness. They ensure that the transport of goods can withstand the weight and conditions during the shipping transport. They do also check the doors, as I said earlier, the functionality of the doors, the hinges, the locking mechanisms, and the condition of the seals. That the doors operate smoothly and securely, seals are intact to prevent water ingress and protect the cargo. They check mainly for corrosion. Corrosion is being part and parcel for a maritime industry because it's being transported to sea, and salt water is the main conductor for erosion. They eat away any steel that is exposed. So if your container was exposed and not painted properly, there's probably corrosion that has begun in. So if there is corrosion or deterioration due to corrosion in the container's exterior, they might fail it. The ISS that they are so stringent. They also verify the numbers, the data plate, the CFC plate, the ASF markings. They ensure that the proper labeling is being carried out. The proper labeling, as in if there is some dangerous cargo inside, then probably the proper labeling, or surveyed by a class surveyor like DNV, Bureau Veritas, so certificate and a label present on the container. They also do a general cleanliness, and the appearance of the container is very important for an ISC survey. They do an in-depth structural integrity. They check each and every welding, each and every cross member of this thing, of the container, the down below part, the bottom, which is not usually checked in other surveys. They lift the container up, the bottom of the container, where the cross members are there, they do a structural and integrity check to see whether there is no corrosion. All the weldings are intact and done to the standards as mentioned in the ISL 6, and the strength of the container is good enough so that it can carry your cargo ahead. So once the internal and external surfaces of the container is done, they give a certificate certifying it as cargo worthy as per the ISL 6 survey. So both the cargo worthy survey and ISL 6 surveys play a critical role in this maintaining the quality and the safety of the containers. They help identify potential issues and ensure compliance with industry standards. They contribute to the efficiency of the container overall. As mentioned globally, as mentioned internationally, in a global level, and as used in the container industry. Let's see what is the next kind of survey that we have. So now all these surveys have declared that, okay, the container is fit. The cargo is, the container is okay to take on hire. The container is worthy to be loaded by my cargo. But is it fit to go into sea? So as I mentioned, all these points, the main focus of these surveys is to ensure that your container has to travel via sea, and the presence of the sea, it has to bear. So is my container seaworthy? So that is what the seaworthy survey does. So what the seaworthy survey does is assesses whether a container is fit for the intended sea voyage. If I am going from Mumbai to Brazil, probably a voyage of 18 to 20 days, is my container seaworthy to travel this distance of 18 to 20 days? Will it be able to take on the perils of the sea? Is it completely seaworthy and intended for the intended voyage? That is what we are determining. So as we determined all along, the same parameters are again checked: structural integrity, water tightness, door functionality, ventilation, flow condition, overall cleanliness, compliance, and regulations. So once all this is done, then the documentation of the containers and everything happens, and then you get a seaworthy survey completed. Once all these are done, you know that your container, your cargo is ready to be shipped from point A to point B, and you have carried out the necessary checks as per these surveys. If these surveys are done, it ensures that there will be no problem during the transit, unless God forbid, due to an act of God or some other reason. But structurally and via legal means and the documentation part and the safety part is been attained for by doing these surveys. We have one kind of special survey which we do is called the IMDG banning survey. Now, what is banning? You remember a couple of slides before I told you something called as an hazardous cargo. Now, not only day-to-day objects, everything that we see on board or on sea or on land, there is a certain aspect which is hazardous. There are certain cargoes, there are certain there are certain things that can be hazardous to you and me. You and me being the shipper, you being the consignee, and also the shipping line, the crew on board, and the receiver and the sender. So these things, these cargoes which are dangerous, are classified in one book called known as the IMDG, International Maritime Dangerous Good Code. So there is a book published by IMO called as the IMDG book, International Maritime Dangerous Good Code. Contains 2 volumes and a supplement. They tell you what are the goods. First of all, they tell you what are the goods that are determined as dangerous, which has to be classified as, and also how to pack them, how to ship them, what kind of precautions you need to take, what are the checks you need to do, what are the flashing and securing arrangement that need to be done, what are the placarding needs to be done. That is done during an IMDG banning survey. So what's a banning survey? The IMDG code has set forth regulations for the safe transportation of hazardous materials by sea, as I told you. Banning surveys are crucial as per ensuring compliance with these regulations. So when the surveyor goes there, he is basically telling the shipper to comply with the banning code, with the IMDG code. So when the line or when the shipping company wants the survey to be done, the purpose behind is to verify that the stuffing and the securing of the dangerous goods into the containers comply with the code, the IMDG code, and regulations are followed. The international regulations are followed to the T. What the aim is to ensure the safety of the vessel first, the crew, the environment during the transport. Because when the shipper is loading, there is no crew present there of the ship. When the the cargo is being discharged into the warehouse, there is no shipper present there. So to be the eyes and ears and of the line and for the ship and for the crew, the surveyors come into play. So what we do is, as surveyors, we do the documentation part first. First, we ensure that the documents that are required. Now, if you say there is a shipment of HALS that is to be shipped from probably say from Jaipur to Brazil, which we often do. First, we call for the documentation of it. We check the SDS, the safety data sheet of the cargo that is being shipped. Please. Sorry. Then we check for the packing list, the IIP certificate, the certificate of packaging, the booking copy by the line. So the line who issues a booking copy, that booking copy is checked whether the booking copy is for a HALS cargo. Next one we check is the labels and markings as per the code. So when you say that as per the code, how do I know that what is the labels and markings required as per the code? So every HALS cargo has got a real number specified in the code. We open the code, open to the UN number. The UN number pertaining to the code will have a proper shipping name, will have a UN, the packaging requirements, the UN number, the kind of packaging it needs to be done, the kind of storage is to have, the what the SGS can mention, what is the proper shipping name and everything as per the code. So once you open the code, you have a good idea of how this shipment should be packaged, how should be transported, what kind of precautions need to be taken. All these are mentioned in the code. So when the shipper comes out with the documentation to us, we take the document, check it against the code, find everything proper. We advise them if something is not proper. We go into the next step, get the pictures of the cargo to see whether the documentation and the cargo that is presented matches. Oftentimes, probably, as we have seen, the documentation is for one type of cargo and the picture provided is for entirely a different kind of cargo or the packaging. The packaging certificate given by IIP or international survey packaging companies, they have to have a unique code mentioned on the package that this package pertains to this certificate. Often shippers do herapheri in that and do try to get the packaging code effect on a different kind of packages, where we come in and we check and we advise them not to do that. So once these are done, the documentation is right, the cargo is okay, the packaging is okay, the SDS is okay, the packing list is okay. Because everything is okay, we proceed for the inspection of the containers. How the inspection is done? The empty containers are picked up, and at the location of stuffing, we go there and we inspect the empty containers first. As you might have seen the previous slide, the points that were discussed, all those points we do for the same cargo as well. So it's a bit stringent than a normal on-air offer survey, and at the same time a little bit lenient than the ISCL 6 survey. So basically what we need is a sound container, which is seaworthy, which is cargo worthy. We can take the cargo mentioned in the documentation, and it is the right kind of container. When I tell you the right kind of container, it's probably the distinguishing of the container that we did earlier on. Whether am I sending a temperature sensitive cargo in a dry van box? Am I sending a cargo which has to be shipped in liquids in a different kind of a container? So that is what I mentioned by cargo specific container. So when the container that is presented to the surveyor ensures that this container can be loaded with the cargo that is mentioned in the documentation. Once that is done, the structural integrity is checked, the leaks and the seal and the washers and everything is checked. Then begins the pre-lashing of the container. Now, what do you call the pre-lashing is before the cargo is stuffed. So you probably might think that we just stuff in the cargo and then put a belt around it. So that's not usually the case. So to get access the whole cargo and to make the cargo and the container as one, what we do is we put in the belts or tapes, if you may call them, around the container in an empty container first. We secure the tapes or the belts with the container first, and then the cargo is loaded. So what happens is, once the cargo is loaded fully into the container, we then seal the cargo with the belts and make it as a unit. So now once the cargo is loaded in and the belts are tightened, we know that the belts have fastened the cargo with the container, and now they move as one. If you have seen pictures or what do you call videos of ship traveling to heavy seas, you might have seen the way it travels. So it's not a smooth ride always. So when the ship rolls and pitches, you now know that your cargo has been taut with the container and it moves as one. there is no way that your cargo can come out of the tight lashings and bang around inside the container, damaging the cargo, damaging the container, and also maybe spilling, causing a spillage, fire or explosion or whatever. So that is what we aim to ascertain during an IMDG survey. The next kind of surveys that we do or seen in the industry are insurance surveys. So now this survey is basically the most one of the most important surveys in the industry. So everybody knows that when you pay premium to an insurance company, the insurance company does not want to pay you back the claim. They don't want the premium to go back as a claim to you back. So if you have insured your cargo for $1 million and your premium is say around $5,000 for the shipment, and you say by the time it reaches the destination, you come to know that the cargo is not worthy of being consumed or being used, and now the insurance has to pay a claim of 1 million as decided by their agreement, and now the insurer has to pay you $1 million. So what will the insurance guy do? As you know, what happens when your car bangs and you go to the insurance guy and say, "Oh, I got a bent fender and I need to change my car's part, or the light, or the fender, or the glass." So insurance guys say, "Okay, let me see, let me check with the my team. They'll do an investigation first and find out the root cause, why it happened." So that is what these guys do. These guys do also a root cause analysis, and also before sending out your shipment out, they do something called as a pre-insurance survey. That is what, before you send your container out, they ensure that you follow the rules. So let's delve into it. So this is probably risk management, risk mitigation. Insurance surveys are typically conducted by certified surveyors. Obviously, you cannot have a normal surveyor conducting an insurance survey. He has to be certified by the authorizing competent authority, and they should be specializing in the cargo, especially for us in the marine surveys. So when we say that they are specialized people, so they might have years of experience transporting, years of experience in surveying such kind of cargo, in such kind of environment, in such kind of field, or marine field, and air field, or whatever kind of modal transport. The specific type of survey depends on the nature of the cargo as well, the mode of transportation, the insurance provider's requirements. Now, this is what I told you. Their requirements are at the foremost, because they are the guys who are going to pay you at the end. So the insurance guys, they have a set of requirements that you need to follow if you want your 1 million as a claim. So it is essential that you have to coordinate with the insurance companies to ensure that appropriate surveys are carried out in accordance with their policies and the standards that they list. So these standards are listed by the insurance company and not by anyone else. As the claim is by them, as the reimbursement has to come from them, so obviously the standards will be set by them. So now let's see what all kinds of surveys are there. Like, as we saw the types of containers, and as we saw the type of surveys in containers and cargoes, let's see what all kind of surveys are there in insurance as well. So, like every time, obviously, the insurance guy wants to know whether your container is fit to travel with the cargo that is available. obviously, like surveyors, what we do, as I told you, we check the container first for the suitability for the cargo that is available. Now, the cargo that you have and the container that has been provided, it has to be suitable, obviously. That is our first point. So the surveyor from the insurance company, they come in, they will check. So what they are going to check, what they are actually doing risk assessment. They are doing nothing. They are an agenda to mitigate the risk involved during the transit. Their only job is to remove all the risk associated with the transport so that your premium comes to them and they do not have to pay a claim once the survey is done. So they mitigate the risk one by one. So they try and find out what are the risks associated with insuring this cargo in this container. So when they do a thorough examination of that container, they know that they have removed one kind of risk. If the container is proper, they have mitigated at least one kind of risk. They will also check and address the potential issues that can come out during the transportation. They can foresee that whether this cargo when put in this container, probably down 2 days, there is probably a risk of some losses happening because of the type or the nature or the kind of cargo and the container. They also ensure that the cargo is compatible. They will also ensure what we did earlier, the structural integrity of the containers. They also check the watertightness, the door functionality, the ventilation, the floor condition, and obviously, as the regulations, the labeling and all. So when there is no labeling on the IMDG cargo and there is an audit at the discharge port, obviously the shipper will put a claim. The consignee will put a claim that I have been fined so and so X amount of dollars because you did not put the labels on my container. So that is what the pre-inspection container inspection survey, they will tell that, sir, as per this report, the label was already there. So that is what they are mitigating the risk involved in transporting that dangerous cargo. They'll also check the cleanliness of the container. They will ensure that there is no residue from the previous cargo that has come in, and it can commingle with the next cargo. Basically, your container has to be clean to have taken any new cargo. There should not be any kind of a residue in your container. It should be swept, washed, clean before loading the next cargo. That is what the insurance guy is going to check. The next kind of survey that we see in insurance is not of the container, but of the shipment. Now, the shipment, what is being put in the container, that is the high value asset for the insurer. The asset is your high valued goods that are going inside the container, and the insurance is for that cargo. So the cargo is insured. Obviously, the container is insured by the container line or the owner of the container, but as a shipper or as a consignee, his main worry is the high-end cargo that is going inside the container. The container which carries the cargo has to be insured. So the cargo to be insured needs to be checked or surveyed by a surveyor, checking all those things that is required as a prerequisite before it ships out of the load port. So what are they checking in a pre-shipment survey? So these kinds of surveys are conducted before or during the loading process. So it's actually
A quick reminder, Mr. Thomas, the time is also getting up. So if you can little speed up, I know you have a few more slides. We'd like to close this by 5:10. I mean, your session and then over for question answers.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank So moving on pretty quickly, I think I have covered the requirements of the container. So the pre-shipment survey also will check all the labeling aspects, all the condition of the cargo, is it as per the requirement, and also it will also ensure that it's done as per the requirement of the consignee or as per the standards of the insurer. Then there is the similar kind of a survey that is done during loading and discharging. So the insurer always wants that the surveys are done while it is being loaded and also while it is being discharged. As the consignor and the consignee, they both want at both the ends that the loading and discharging takes place smoothly, and at both the ends the cargo was intact and they have paid for what they have received. Last is the damage survey. So now, God forbid, there is a damage during the survey, during the voyage or before the voyage or before it ships out. So the damage survey is done. There is a surveyor that comes in and checks whether your container is damaged or not. And if it is damaged, what is the potential risk that can affect the safety of that cargo during that transit. So, the role of the surveyor is pretty straightforward. What he is doing is ensuring that there is safety during the whole process, during the transportation process from point A to point B, that your cargo or your ship or your container is safe, and he is the what you call guard in between. No, they ensure that you do not face a financial loss because he is standing there and he is responsible, that he has assured you that these things are taken care by the surveyor. So what all does he take care of? He assures you of the quality, that it's met the regulatory standards of the industry. He ensures that accidents can be prevented. He ensures that the cargo is safe, and also the crew that is on the ship will be safe. He removes out the risk. He mitigates the risk completely as much as possible through his end, through surveys, inspections. He identifies potential issues. He foresees things that can probably lead to issue later on during the voyage. He reduces the risk of accidents by almost 85 to 90%. He ensures that cargo damages are not there. He also reduces the risk of cargo damage, and also legally he ensures that the legal disputes don't arise because he was present there and he's got legal documenting proof that the cargo's condition was so and so before and after the shipment. They also are very good at compliance. They do the best job in complying with the rules of international regulations and the industry standards. They promote safety and compliance with environment as well. So in conclusion, surveyors or surveys in the container field, they are the most integral part of our shipping industry. Let me conclude quickly, as I did not, I warned you that I suddenly go into the training mode and forget sense of time. I'm sorry for that. So in conclusion, why a survey is done or why a surveyor is required has been listed out in all these slides that I presented. And I hope you guys have understood the importance of eyes and ears down there for everyone, for the consignee, for the consigner, for the shipper, for the insurance guy, for the ship, for the shipping company, for the owner of the containers, for every aspect of the loading or every aspect of the transport, the multimodal transport that happens between the factory of the shipper to the warehouse of the consignee. The surveyors are your eyes and ears everywhere. I think if it were not for surveys and surveyors, we might have a lot more legal claims arising. Warren Buffett would have had his beautiful T-bone steak dinner, and there wouldn't have been a big claim on the consigner by the restaurant in US. I hope my session was as useful as you guys might have imagined or envisioned, that you might have learned something new, or do let me know. We are now ready to take your question and answers. Over to you, Priya. Thank you so much. Am I audible? Priya, are you there? Vasan? Have I put up to sleep?
Yeah, we are there. Sorry.
Vasan, are you awake? I thought
No,
I
no.
put it to sleep.
No, Priya is just consolidating the questions.
Okay, sorry.
If you can close your sharing, so it'll be easier for us to.
Great. Thank you very much for that wonderful session, Mr. Thomas. It was a fantastic session, a very knowledgeable session. Well, I think you've been very clear enough that people do not have too many questions. But I'll still take whatever questions. Some had come online at the time of registration itself, and some have come now. So I'll just bring on to the screen the question answer session. Just hold on.
I really hope I can answer all of them.
Great. Can you see that?
Yes.
Can everyone? Great.
Joint survey for damages, how relevant is the remark without liability and prejudice? Okay, as surveyors, we cannot be prejudiced. We cannot be pally with, if my friend is shipping, if I belong to X company and I am friends with Y, and I'm doing the survey for Y, and I'll say to my surveyor, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So that means I am being prejudiced. And this remark without liability and prejudice can be held against you in the court of law, as I believe, because if there is a clash of interest, there is a conflict of interest between you and the person who is asking for the survey, or if there is reason to believe that there is some hanky-panky between you and the shipper, and your report suggests favoritism, or your report is not without prejudice, you can be held against it. So this line, without liability and prejudice, takes care of the surveyor's responsibility, saying that I am not liable, I am not prejudiced because of this report. Because as soon as I do the survey, I am telling you what I have seen, and I am reporting you as seen and as is liable, and I am not to be held liable for my report. Siddesh Naikwadi would like to know about survey including PNI. Yes, PNI clubs do the surveys. If you are like any other survey company, PNI is based out of London, as you guys may know. So everything other than the hull of the ship, everything other than the hull. Hull means the external body of the ship. Everything other than the body of the ship is insured by the shipping company via PNI. So PNI takes care of each and everything on the ship. Once it has crossed the rail and is come into a ship, and there is a claim or there is this thing, P&I is the guy whom you have to contact to get your claim settled. So P&I will come into picture. They will do their own investigation, their own what you call surveys. So other than your hull and the machinery, rest everything in the ship, what is come on the ship is handled by P&I. P&I club covers everything that is there on the ship except for the hull and the machinery. I hope I answered that to your satisfaction. Kalpesh J, to understand industrial survey in more details. I do not understand industrial survey per se. What we are dealing with here, Kalpesh, is the survey that is applicable in the marine industry. Obviously, we go to industries to survey if the cargo is there at your factory. We do not do a survey of your industry. We do not do the industry's survey. We do the survey of your package, which is supposed to be shipped in marine transport models or by road or by rail or a multimodal mode. So the surveyors come there to do the survey for this marine industry. These are the modes that we probably take care of. Preetham Gowde, hi, is testing by NDT being done in ISL 6? Non-destructive testing, yes, it is being done. If there is reason to believe by the ISL 6 surveyor that, or there is reason to believe by the surveyor that this particular thing has to be checked by NDT, is usually the weldings or the seams or those parts or the edges or the strength members or things like that, which your naked eye cannot see, which the NDT does. And if the surveyor thinks an NDT is required, they might recommend it to the person asking for the IRCL 6 survey, or if the consignor or the consignee requires an NDT to be done on all the seams and weldings, or then they might ask for it. In-depth visual inspection is what is primarily done. As far as the eye can go, as far as the visibility is there, precise measuring instruments are used in NDT. There are X-ray machines to check the integrity of your welds. So this testing can be done by NDT if required by the consignor or by the surveyor if he deems fit, if he requires it. What about statutory surveys that are only done by classification societies like periodic inspection of ISO tanks, CSC surveys of diagrams? Yes, the name is not mentioned. Correct, as you rightly said. These are there of ISO tanks and CSC surveys of diagrams. It's every 2.5 years. So as I mentioned earlier in my slide, I cannot cover every and any survey that is being done. I chose the survey which is limited so that I can fit into the slide bracket, which I have obviously overthrown it. So these ISO tanks and drive and CSC plate surveys are surveys that are conducted by authorized bodies like DNV, Bureau Veritas, or classification societies, or CSC plate accreditation societies, like the ASIP guys. They do it. I believe it is every 5 years, and twice in every 5 years. That is every 2.5 years. You need to complete one inspection at least, so as to keep your tank and your van valid for the next duration till the next survey. Actually, is asking what about statutory survey? The same. Okay, it was actually only that was asking the same question. I hope actually answered your question. ISO tanks, CSC surveys, and everything that goes on a ship has to be surveyed, has to have a certificate. Even your rope, every shackle, every wire has to have a certificate. I hope my answers are clear there. Any other questions?
Ashley, yeah.
Ashley mentions that her question is not clearly mentioned, but it's just a copy paste of what she did mention, Ashley. So, not too sure. Maybe you can rewrite your question in a better way. Maybe it's misunderstood somewhere. What all things to be considered while deciding extent of damage in cargo claims?
Sorry, can you show me the question, Priya? What is the question?
Wait, maybe it is my system's error. It's not a repeat question. Let me
The
just.
extent of damage, I believe, no? That's what it's about. The extent of
No,
damage.
no. It is just a minute. I'm sorry. Ashley's question was what all the checkpoints deciding as to on cause of damage in cargo claim. Similarly, what all things to be considered while deciding extent of damage in cargo claim. I think while copy pasting it copied the wrong question. Hmm.
So, what are the checkpoints deciding as to on cause of damage? What are the checkpoints deciding the cause of damage in cargo damage claim? Okay. Similarly, what are things to be considered while deciding extent of damage in cargo claims? Okay. This is particularly uh, insurance question. So now, if there is a claim, the consignee or the consigner or whoever is putting the claim out now has told you that I got 100 bags and I got 80 bags intact. I got 20 bags damaged. So in that 20 bags, maybe there are 1,000 pieces of some cargo. Maybe in that 1,000 pieces, you got 200 intact and 800 damaged. And in that 200 intact and the 800 damaged, some are damaged only minutely, some are damaged 50%, some are damaged 80%, some are damaged 100%. So when it comes to claim, they do not see what is damaged inside. So the answer can be dependent on the insurance surveyor or the underwriters. So what they will do is they will take as a whole as to what was the claim, what is the extent of damage. So the insurance surveyor will determine the extent of damage. So what all checkpoints are to be checked? That can be only answered by an insurance. I'm sorry, I am not equipped to answer that question.
That's it with the questions at the moment. I hope everyone's question was answered. That was one fantastic and really knowledgeable, a lot of information, power packed session. Harish ji, over to you.
Thank you. So thank you, Thomas. I think it was a wonderful session. I'm sure you could have continued for a longer time, given some more time, but you know, there are some time restraints, and we are sorry to be asking you to cut it short.
I understand the time constraints. I overshot my given allocated time. Sorry for that.
No, that's fine. That means you have so much knowledge to share that, and we didn't have enough time to get your get the complete thing. But just I had a single question. I have seen what we've seen usually is everyone when they take a container for exports, and you know usually a container is supposed to be surveyed for exports before you give it out. But many a times in our industry faces problems when after the container is loaded, it's either it's leaking or there is some problem, and then when we bring it back to the port, and sometimes it's not taken in because it was damaged when we picked up. So how does one deal with something like this? It's just a thing for everybody, it's a question. It's not a survey, it's a question from the surveyor's point of view as to what we should be looking at.
Right. So, as we see day in and day out in my office, this is a common occurrence. There are places where we have surveyors present at every gate, every load point, or every location where the container first comes in. So now probably these things happen where the surveyor is not present, or the maintenance and repair guy has not done his job. So the MNR guy has issued an okay to load container without checking, has not completed his job. And then the surveyor was not present there, or the surveyor was not appointed to check there. So these are the two ways where you can get such kind of issues cropping up. So probably every line or every NVOCC has got an MNR who is responsible to check that the container that is available for the shipper to load is in perfect condition, is in available mode. It has to have no damages. It has to be clean. It has to be ready. There has to be no old labels, nothing. And once it is ready, only can he update the status on his report to the line. And the line can keep a surveyor to double check on this. Most of the lines that we work for, everyone has a surveyor in place, but there are certain areas where we do not cater to, and that comes in. So when it comes in like this, so we can do a survey when it's gated in and can assess the extent of damage, whether it can go or not, whether is it
But that should be a part of the equipment owner and not of the industry, is what I am trying to say. And
owner or on the NOCC or on the line.
exactly. Vasant, do you need a question? You have got your hand up.
Yeah, one quick question. Talking about container surveys, you're talking about IICL 6. And what is the difference between IICL 6 and IICL 7? Because many a times when we take some containers on lease or hire or for purchase, generally they say that we want a survey report IICL 7. So I just want to understand what are the difference.
I think it is the more stringent rules. See, every upgradation of the certification that is done, they give you a number. So earlier, how we used to have for your dangerous goods, the amendments that come in. So so you have it for your every classification society has to upgrade themselves. So ISCL also have to upgrade their standards. So they cannot be relying on the standard that was there 20 years back and the checklist that was there 20 years back. So every a couple of years or maybe they make it more stringent. The reason being the number of accidents that are happening, the number of claims that are arising, the number of pollution that's happening, damage to the environment. So all these come into play, and there are rules that are being added. So same goes for your vessel, your solar, your MARPOL, your IMDG, similarly for your container surveys. So ISO 6 standards are what being followed right now. I do not know about 7. Thank you for bringing that to me. We have not heard about 7 so far. So probably that is in play right now. That has been introduced by ISO.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so then, Mr. Thomas, thank you very much. Wonderful session. So on behalf of all our members, our participants, the training arm of AMTOI and AMTOI itself, we thank you for a wonderful session. And at the same time, I'd like to request all the participants over here that if you have any requirements of any kind of training that you need or knowledge sessions, please do write to AMTOI and we'll be happy to bring that to you. We'll try and get the best people in the industry to come and give you give you more knowledge about what you need to know about. So please feel free to write to AMTOI. We'll be happy to take all your suggestions and try to fulfill them as much as we can. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. The recording can be stopped, Neha.
Thank you, Priya. Thanks a lot.